in the afternoon and then have a complete rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the next morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube every morning between 9 and 10 a.m. with the whole show then available on our YouTube channel all of the time. A day of intimate details at the Oscar Pistorius trial yesterday at the North Gauteng High Court. We'll cross to Griselda quickly for an update. Then we look at cross-border initiative to curb tuberculosis in the mines, and then a look at one of South Africa's hottest new bands a bit later. But first, let's take a look at the news headlines. Police cell phone analysis expert Francois Moller will continue with his testimony of what he found on Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp's cell phones today. Yesterday, Captain Moller told the North Gauteng High Court that Steenkamp said she was scared of the Paralympian's temper in a text message sent less than 3 weeks before her death. Bad weather has forced the suspension of the search for wreckage from the missing Malaysian airliner that officials are now sure crashed in the Indian Ocean. Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak announced yesterday that flight MH370 had crashed and that all 239 people on board were presumed to be dead. And South African captain Faf du Plessis called Dale Steyn his trump card, and he proved once again invaluable. New Zealand needing just 7 runs from the final over in their World T20 Group 1 match. Steyn took 2 wickets and orchestrated a run-out to help the Proteas to an unlikely victory. Now, cell phone and analysis expert Francois Moller will continue with his testimony of what he found on Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp's cell phones. Yesterday, the police captain told the North Gauteng High Court that he had to access the 2 iPhones in order to extract deleted data from the devices. He read out exchanges between Steenkamp and Pistorius detailing issues of jealousy and mistrust in their relationship. Now, outside the North Gauteng High Court, as always, Griselda Lewis. Good morning, Griselda. Are you with us?
Well, a very good morning to you, Evan.
Griselda, just tell us, an interesting day, a big day, some people say in court yesterday. Just recap for us what happened there.
Well, certainly a big day yesterday inside court, Evan, and definitely not a good day for Oscar Pistorius and his defence team, where WhatsApp messages were read out in court, painting a picture of an Oscar Pistorius was very jealous and had violent outbursts towards Reeva Steenkamp. That's certainly what these WhatsApp messages are detailing, and that Reeva Steenkamp also indicated that she was quite scared of Oscar Pistorius. Oscar Pistorius accusing her on several occasions of flirtatious behavior, and basically painting a picture of an Oscar Pistorius who often snapped out at Reeva Steenkamp. Now, we heard this testimony before through Samantha Taylor, Oscar Pistorius' ex-girlfriend, who also highlighted a situation where she said Oscar Pistorius often snapped at her friends, and even at her family. So really a blow, I would say, for the defence team, in that the details that are now emerging somewhat paint a picture of what the relationship was like between Reeva Steenkamp and Oscar Pistorius. Of course, in the limelight, everything seemed to be very rosy, but these SMSs, these WhatsApp messages, certainly detail another picture of what the relationship, the mistrust that there was between the couple. So we're expecting a lot of that to come out of court again today. Certainly won't be a good day again for the defence team. We also spotted Mark Batchelor walking into the North Gauteng High Court. You would recall Mark Batchelor is a former soccer player who previously had an altercation with Oscar Pistorius, where Oscar Pistorius is alleged to have threatened Mark Batchelor, telling him that he will break his leg. So I would presume that his presence here at the court means that he would possibly take the stand here today. So that remains to be seen exactly what will take place in court. But certainly we're also expecting a lot more details to come from the iPhone that the investigators went to the United States to go and crack the password for, to give us more details about the nature of the SMSs, the nature of the relationship between Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp, where what we're clearly seeing at the moment, given the testimony by the cell phone expert, is that that it certainly wasn't a relationship, a healthy relationship at some point, even though the cell phone expert said that 90% of the SMSs that they read between the couple were somewhat normal and that of a loving couple. But the SMSs that certainly were read out, the WhatsApp messages that were read out in court yesterday, paint a different picture to what we've been seeing in the limelight, that of a loving couple.
Now, there's talk of this case being wrapped up this week. Does it look like that? And also wanted to ask you about the reaction of the families to this kind of intimate testimony that we're hearing now.
Well, the case certainly isn't going to wrap up now, Eben. We will be going on with the case into mid-May, but there will be a recess over the Easter period. We will go away for that and return at a later stage. But the case certainly, now we understand from the judiciary that it will continue until the 16th of May. With regard to the reaction by Riva Steenkamp's family, yesterday we watched as June Steenkamp kept leaning forward to try and get a glimpse of Oscar Pistorius as she heard the details of the SMSs that they exchanged between each other. Oscar Pistorius was red-faced. He kept looking down as June Steenkamp tried to look in his direction. Oscar Pistorius never looked up, not once, to perhaps get a glimpse of June Steenkamp. So a mother yesterday definitely in court hearing details of her daughter saying that she was sad, that she was unhappy, and that she was very unhappy also about some of the outbursts that she says Oscar Pistorius often did at functions with friends and family sometimes. She mentioned an instance as well where they had to leave a party of Darren Fresco's. Before, you remember, Darren Fresco was also one of the state's witnesses where they had to leave the party because there had been somewhat an uncomfortable behavior following an altercation between the two. So June Steenkamp, we're expecting to be back in court again today as she hears more details of what came from the devices of Oscar Pistorius and Riva Steenkamp.
Thank you very much once again, Griselda Lewis, keeping us updated outside the North Gauteng High Court. Of course, that case into a 17th day today. Stay on this platform. We'll be crossing live there a little bit later, shortly after 30:30 for proceedings live. But right now, Southern Africa is among the regions in the world that are off track in meeting the Millennium Development Goal of halving tuberculosis mortality by the end of 2015. Mining contributes significantly to the TB epidemic. It has become more than just a health issue, but it's also central to the economic development of the Southern African region. Governments of Lesotho, Mozambique, South Africa and Swaziland will meet with the mining industry at a ministerial meeting being held in Johannesburg today to discuss an approach to the management of TB in the mining industry across all four of these nations. Now, our researcher, Zandile Mjeza, is at the Sandton Convention Centre this morning. Good morning, Zandi. I understand you have a guest, but just set the scene for us before you go into the interview.
Good morning and thank you, Eben. Yes, we're broadcasting indeed live here from the Sandton Convention Centre, where Southern African nations have gathered here to address issues of tuberculosis in the mining industry. This comes after a declaration that was signed in August of 2012 to prioritise tuberculosis. Here with me, I've got Dr. Patrick Osewe from the World Bank. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Zandi.
Doctor, talk to us about what is important about today's meeting.
This is a very unique meeting that has never happened before, because a meeting that brings together the ministers of minerals, ministers of health, ministers of labor, and ministers of finance to talk about TB in the mining sector, a sector that's very critical for the economic growth of the continent of Africa. So we are here to see how we can solve this problem that has been in the mining sector for more than 100 years.
With 2015 just around the corner and the Millennium Development Goal target fast approaching, how important is it to prioritize TB and to meet the target?
It's extremely important because in Southern Africa, some of the major countries in Southern Africa, like South Africa, Swaziland, and so on, have not met the MDG targets. And we cannot address the issue of TB without focusing on TB in the mining sector, because mine workers have the highest incidence of TB of any working population in the world. And for us to address TB in the Southern African region, we have to address TB in the mines.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Patrick Osewe. We are still here at the Sandton Convention Centre. What we are expecting in a short while is Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe to make his keynote address here, and we'll be bringing it to you live here from Sandton. Thank you, Eben.
Thank you very much, Zandi, for that contribution. Now, the ministerial meeting seeks to highlight progress made, in developing a regional response to TB in the mining sector. This follows the SADC declaration of war on TB in the mines. Now, we are joined by Dr. Tutula Balfo-Kaipa, the head of health at the Chamber of Mines. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We've just seen that, the conference is underway, but I want to backtrack a little bit away from the conference a little bit and look at the picture on the mines itself. Can you give us some sort of idea of, or put it into perspective, how big the problem is, not just in South Africa, but then across the SADC region?
Okay. Maybe if I could start off by saying, there's a context for why there are higher TB rates in the mining industry, particularly the gold industry, than the normal population. We potentially have high risks in mining, starting with silica dust exposure, which is mainly in the gold mining industry. That can actually give you a 3 times chance of contracting TB compared to a normal population. Again, we have, the TB epidemic in the region has been driven by HIV, which started about 20 years ago. Yeah. And if you have HIV, you can have up to, your risk increases about 6 times, in terms of your possibility of getting TB. And so potentially in mining, you also have migrant, workers. And migrant workers actually have a 2 times risk of contracting TB because they are living away, of contracting HIV, because they are living away from families. Yeah. So you've got a lot of risk factors, and potentially we can have very high risks for the industry. But historically, we've had high rates, up to about 7 times sometimes, the national rate. But that has come down, in the past few years. So in South Africa, the average population rate we take to be just below 1%, of people in South Africa have TB. In the gold mining industry, at one stage, as I said, this was about 7 times. It went down to 3 times. We are now seeing that it's even at about 2 times, in the gold industry. So we are making very steady progress in reducing TB in the gold mining industry. For the other commodities, you find that in coal, for instance, their rates are even lower than the South African rate. And that's due to what we call the healthy worker effect. Because anyone who's working actually has better health than someone who is not working. Yeah. So if you then look at South Africa compared to the other countries, Southern Africa generally has been very hard hit by the HIV epidemic. Yeah. So Swaziland, Botswana, Mozambique doesn't have as high rates as we have, in South Africa, Swaziland, and Lesotho. But those 3 countries, South Africa, Mozambique, South Africa, Lesotho, Swaziland, we tend to have very high rates of HIV and therefore of TB at about 1% of our population.
Now, we mentioned the economic impact of this pandemic a little bit earlier when we did the introduction. Just talk us through the economic impact and how it can impact within these countries.
If you look at, starting with the industry really, for any disease, HIV has a significant impact. It's been documented right through the years. If you don't manage HIV, then you lose a lot of productivity. People get sick. And so there is a lot that can be gained by controlling, managing HIV. Because people, move between the countries, they work in South Africa, a lot of them. It also means that even for those countries, people who could potentially be working, they don't work if they are not treated for the HIV, and therefore that has an impact on those countries.
And across borders, what are the biggest challenges in dealing with this pandemic that you're facing now?
What we have found is, the mines have good programs with good outcomes, resources, they are well resourced.
Yeah.
But the challenge is once a person needs to go home, whether it's temporarily for leave or permanently, maybe they can't continue working, then there is that break, For instance, we hear that sometimes when a person is going with a whole lot of medication from the company going to another country, at the border they think there's a criminal here, there's someone who is dealing in drugs, and they confiscate that, which means now the person doesn't have treatment when they get home. So that's what we are trying to address now. How do we ensure that there's this seamless, transfer? If I'm from a mining company in South Africa, then there is someone who knows when I'm going to Lesotho or even the Eastern Cape, and can therefore ensure that there's continuity in terms of my treatment. The current mechanisms we have, like TEBA, where they go and follow up the mine worker, ensure they finish treatment, are a bit, cumbersome and expensive. And through this, we want to see if we can find,
and that'll be much of the discussion at the plenary sessions we see today at the ministerial meeting.
Yeah, a lot of it will be how do we improve, that communication, the referral systems, how do we ensure, the Minister of Health in South Africa has been quite firm on, we also need to have similar ways in which we treat people. So if I'm going to Mozambique, the treatment should be the same as in South Africa. And that's the work that's been done over the past months so that the countries can agree on one regime for treating TB.
And how to align the treatment. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning,
Thank you.
Doctor. That's Dr. Tutula Balfo-Kaipa, the Head of Health at the South African Chamber of Mines. Let's just take a quick look at what you are talking about on social media now. You can send your views to at SABC Newsroom on Twitter. Songezo said, Harry Nell's cross-examination of Oscar Pistorius will be quite dramatic. Methinks Oscar may want to chat to Jackie Solebi beforehand. Interesting. Sipiri Matswane says, this morning's newspaper headlines are ripping Oscar Pistorius apart with, I'm scared of you, Weaver, WhatsApp, respond. Yes, that is how it works. Lucy Harper says, it might just be my experiences, but those Pistorius text messages sound like normal bickering between a couple trying to get to know each other. Yes, the only difference is there were 4 gunshots that separated them also, my dear. Kusani says, after reading Reva's WhatsApp message sent to Oscar, I think it's time he rests his case. Like, dude, just give in. It's obvious. Well, after a short break, we'll be crossing to Kenya. And we'll also, have one of the hottest young bands in studio a little bit later. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Mop-up operations continued in various parts of the Western Cape today after the province was hit by devastating storms at the weekend. 3 deaths have been reported. Thousands have been affected.
In the first 9 months of the year, credit card fraud shot up by 22%. This has cost the banking industry more than 366 million rand.
So what consumers must now watch out for is that if they believe their card is swallowed, they must cancel their card whilst they're actually in front of the ATM.
That's Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
You missed the Oscar Pistorius trial? Watch the update and highlights of key moments in the trial on SABC News Channel 404 every night at 9 o'clock and at 5 a.m. All local, all global, all the time.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom. 2 people were shot dead when attackers sprayed a Kenyan church with gunfire on Sunday. Died of their wounds, taking the total killed in the attack to 6 now. Government officials have confirmed this The attack in the Likoni district near the port city of Mombasa came amid heightened warnings of a threat of Islamist violence in Kenya, and despite boosted security in major cities. 15 other people are still in hospital with gunshot wounds, among them many children. The attack on the church comes 6 months after Al-Shabaab commandos carried out the September massacre in Nairobi's Westgate Mall, in which at least 67 people were killed. Well, for an update, we are now joined from Kenya in Nairobi by the SABC's East Africa correspondent, Sarah Kimani. Good morning, Sarah. Are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Sarah, just paint the picture for us and tell us, has anybody claimed responsibility for this attack?
As yet, there is nobody who's claimed responsibility for the attack, but police say they have arrested 59 people, and they say that all of them are Kenyans, and they're sorting out, and they say by the end of the day they will have suspects, confirmed suspects who will be arraigned in court.
Sarah, is it a fact that Kenya is battling to come to terms with this insurgency that seems to be going on there almost every week now?
Yes, and for most Kenyans, actually, they are disappointed, and they feel that the government has been unable to contain the insecurity in the country, be it through terror or be it through such attacks that happen almost every Sunday in churches across the country. And so they're asking the government to heighten security and to actually stop the talk and start working.
And the latest attack, police investigations, I'm sure, underway. Has anything come out of this yet or not?
Well, they still cannot be able to point a finger as to who actually attacked the church. They actually are not even ready to confirm that it was a terror attack or who was involved. But it comes just days after police in the same town of Mombasa intercepted a vehicle carrying pipe bombs, which was said to have been preparing to attack one of the major buildings in the city. And so it is a clear indication that Mombasa is on heightened security alert.
And Sarah, what's the population saying? What are the people saying on the ground about this continued assault on their freedoms, it seems?
Religious leaders yesterday held a press conference in Mombasa and expressed their frustration with the government. They say there had been warnings that this church would actually be attacked, but they never did anything. But the police are saying they cannot have a police officer for every Kenyan walking the streets. And so they're saying that they're doing their best, and that's why now they're saying, look, we have arrested 59 people, but a lot of Kenyans are saying it is not enough. Yesterday, President Kenyatta, on his way to Tanzania, issuing a statement saying that the government will not allow Kenyans to be divided along religious lines. But Kenyans are saying he said the same thing 6 months ago. Shopping mall, and so their feeling is that the government is actually not serious. Others are asking why is Uganda, why is Ethiopia, why is Burundi not a target of such attacks, even though they also have soldiers in Somalia, just like Kenya.
Sarah Kimani, thank you for that update on the situation there. That's our East African correspondent, Sarah Kimani, on the line from Nairobi in Kenya. Now we're going to end on a bit of a lighter note today. We take a look at what happens if you combine rock music with rap. Is it rap and roll? Can it be done? Our producer, Katrine Malan, finds out.
Well, thank you, Evan. Yes, Samoa-nominated rock band Crash Car Burn has joined forces with award-winning rapper Kwesta in one of the hottest collaborations of 2014. Crash Car Burn is known for hits such as Serenade, Twisted and The Light, and has performed at the likes of My Coke Fest and Opikopi. Kwesta is currently up for Best Rap Album at the 2014 Samoa Awards and recently scooped Best Hip Hop Album at the 2014 Metro Awards. They join us in studio today to tell us a bit more. We are joined by Kwesta and Garth Barnes from Crash Car Burn. Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Guys, tell us, rock and rap, how did you guys end up with that?
That was a good name, Rap and Roll.
We're going to use that in the pressure.
Pay me.
I mean, it's something we've been trying to get going for ages now. Like, Kwesta and I actually go way back when Kwesta came out with a huge hit about 5 years ago, I think it was, called Flavor.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to get something going there, and regrettably, I wish we had managed to make it work because it was a huge hit. But we didn't manage to get it right. And ever since then, we sort of kept touch and whatever. And when this song I've been working on for quite some time before, it clicked to me, I need to get Kwesta involved. And we finally managed to get it right. So very excited about the way it's turned out.
The single is called Keep Walking.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about the single itself?
I mean, the single is really a story about from basically hardships to triumphant times. You know what I mean? It's like a story of a struggle to a better day. I mean, to just finding, to just doing more, to trying to be at a better place. Because I write it as it's about me. But it's not really. It's very relative to everybody else's story, where you come from nothing to becoming something, because one of these, and he sings, one of these days the sun's going to shine on us, and that's what we're really trying to say.
Now, I understand you perform in Zulu and in English in the song. Is there any deeper meaning to that?
Look, because it was a story, and it was, I tried to keep it as real as possible with where I take it from. I also needed to keep it like that with the language I used. You know what I mean? I didn't only want, Crash Car Burns here. Let's do it all in English. And I just thought I'd keep it as organic and as authentic as possible. Yeah.
The awesome thing about it is that even though there are verses that are Zulu, and I didn't necessarily understand them the first time I heard them. The message of the song is so universal, and in the context, you can, even though I don't know what those specific words meant at the time when I first heard it, you could still understand the message. So it comes across clearly, and it's very authentically South African. So.
I want to talk about the video playing in the background, the behind-the-scenes footage of the music video. Can you tell us more about the production of the music video? Was it locally produced? How long did it take?
Yes,
what was it like?
Strangely enough, it's actually our drummer, Bugsy, is the director of the videos. That's what he does during the day. He's a cinematographer, so he shot the whole thing for us. And as always, in this industry, you make do with what you have. You've got to pull favors and do what. And we shot the whole thing in a day, and we're busy cutting it at the moment, and it's looking awesome so far. So.
And then just rock and rap again. Are there any similarities between the two, and what are the major differences between the two?
Well, we're like seen as the problems of the industry. I don't know, as the problem child, I mean, the industry is so, you got to learn how to read and write music, and we're like just really wing everything. So, but also we wingers.
Any projects for the future? More rock and rap collaborations?
Well, let's see how this one turns out. The cool thing is, I mean, rock and rap, it's not a completely new thing. It's happened before, but I think what makes this track particularly unique is that it has that definite African flavor. Aside from the Zulu verses, there's traditional singing in there. We've got some African drum beats going on, which is something that has never been mixed with our kind of music before. So whilst rock and rap is not something completely unique, this particular song I think is something that is brand new and fresh. So
then if people wanted to get hold of the single, where can they get hold of it? And
it is up on iTunes. If you go search for Crash Car Burn or Questa, it should pop up. Keep Walking. Plus, it's on SoundCloud if you want to have a listen before you buy. Try before you buy. Otherwise, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, we're on all of those mediums, either Questa or Crash Car Burn. Just search for those.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, you guys. And the single is called Keep Walking, am I right? You guys can find it on iTunes, like they just said. And then we've also uploaded the behind-the-scene footage of the music video on our Facebook. You can also follow us at SABC Newsroom on Twitter. Yeben, back to you.
Thank you very much, Katrine. Interesting, guys. I'm definitely going to go onto YouTube a bit later and have a listen. I'm not really in the loop, but if they want to pay me royalties for the rap and roll thing, I'm happy. Let's take a quick final look at what you are thinking and talking about again on social media. Of course, the missing aeroplane is causing much consternation. Families over in China are now calling Malaysia murderers after they said, well, the plane has crashed into the sea and everyone's dead. Now, Citizen Warrior says MH370 is the century's equivalent of the Titanic, and e-passenger stories really need to be told if there are any survivors. Farewell, says the Citizen. Sammy Hlapi says, the big question is how the Malaysian military missed the MH370 going back across the country. That is a scandal. I say it was alien abduction. Ahmed says, the footage of Malaysia Airlines families lost hope is devastating. Can't think of anything worse. I still would not believe, says Ahmed. Zoli Christine says, hard to believe, plane is lost. Mathematical analysis sounds like another theory. Physical proof is needed. There are many theories, my dear. I still stick with the aliens. Michaela says, if they could produce the wreckage of the Titanic back then, surely they should produce wreckage of flight MH370. This story is dodgy. That's what I'm saying. It's alien abductions. Disappear. That's my story, and I'm going to stick with it. Well, after a short commercial break, we'll hopefully take you to the North Gauteng High Court for day 17 of the Oscar Pistorius murder trial. Don't go away. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
That's Sports Live, daily at 8:30 p.m. on SABC News.
What time is it? It's question time.
Where are these 144,000 people? Are they only in the Jehovah's Witnesses?
To be honest, that is a question that God only can answer.
But you are more than 144,000, which means the rest are not going to the kingdom.
They are going to live on the earth.
That's question time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Saturday, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Let's just take a quick look at the news headlines. A cell phone analysis expert, Francois Moller, will continue with his testimony of what he found on Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp's cell phones today. Yesterday, Captain Moller told the North Gauteng High Court that Steenkamp said she was scared of the Paralympian's temper in a text message sent less than 3 weeks before her death. Bad weather has forced the suspension of the search for wreckage from the missing Malaysian airliner that officials are now sure crashed in the Indian Ocean. Families have reacted with anger after Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak announced yesterday that flight MH370 had crashed and that all 239 people on board were presumed to be dead. No wreckage have yet been found, though. And South African T20 captain Faf du Plessis called Dale Steyn his trump card, and he proved once again to be just that, with New Zealand needing just 7 runs from the final over in their World T20 Group 1 match. Steyn took 2 wickets and orchestrated a run-out to help the Proteas to an unlikely victory. Now we're still waiting for things to get underway in the North Gauteng High Court, as every morning there seems to be slight delays with things getting underway. We will continue with updating you with, well, some of the top news stories. And, of course, the Malaysian airliner is very much on the news the last 2 weeks. Bad weather, I can tell you, has forced a suspension of the search for the wreckage from the missing Malaysian airliner that officials are now sure crashed in the Indian Ocean. Yesterday, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak announced that flight MH370 had crashed and that all 239 people on board were presumed to be dead. The plane mysteriously vanished more than a fortnight ago while flying from Beijing to Kuala Lumpur. A massive international air and sea search has spotted some debris that is believed to have come from the plane, and an Australian ship is close to recovering it is reported. Well, the good news is the court is now in session. It seems that matters are not delayed by too much today. Let's cross now to the North Gauteng High Court for the Oscar Pistorius murder trial, day 17.
Accused and the deceased, we printed that communication and that was handed, but we also made the compact disc available with the complete whole set of download data that we extracted from the phones.
Then, let's deal with the other 2 phones. And the one phone that was also found on the scene is 4949.
That is correct, my lady.
That's the Apple iPhone 5.
That is correct.
That phone you also downloaded.
That is correct, my lady. That phone was handed to me also on the 15th of February, and I did the extraction on that same day, that evening.
And the next set of documents relate to the download of this particular phone.
That is correct, my lady. Again, just the summary and the general information that was extracted from the device.
Lady, may that be marked as ZZ2, my lady? In the right bottom corner, it deals with page 105, 205, 305, 405, and 5 of 5.
That's correct, my lady.
As far as the importance of this document is concerned, is that in using, you used XRY, is that correct?
That's correct, my lady. Again, during this extraction and examination of this specific device, I utilized the XRY software and equipment.
And on the device general information, which one can find at page 3 of 5 and 4 of 5, the owner's name is reflected as?
That's correct, my lady. The name that was captured by the user of the phone was captured and saved as Oscar Pistorius.
Then, Captain, there was another phone, 0020, that you received on the 26th of February.
That is correct, my lady.
And that phone was also downloaded, the information and data on that phone?
That is correct, my lady. With that, the third handset that was given to us, I was involved in 3 downloads that was done with that handset. The first one being with Celebrite software. The second one was an extraction done by Apple in the United States. And the third extraction was done very recently on an upgraded version of the XRY software. And that was done on the, just get the correct date, the 5th of March this year, and on the XRY, and I compiled a report on that.
And the report, as well as the downloads, were handed to the defense?
That's correct, my lady. The electronic versions of these downloads were given to the defense.
Captain, let's deal with movement and communication on the phones. Now, for you to establish communication and movement as far as phones are concerned, you rely on what?
My lady, to do a communication analysis to indicate the communication that takes place as well as the movement of that specific number, I make use of the detailed billing records that we applied for at the service provider. In this case, with all the numbers involved, was at Vodacom.
And what would they provide?
My lady, a detailed billing record consists of all the indication of all the voice communications, the text communications, that will be incoming as well as outgoing. It will also include the GPRS connections, which is more commonly known as the internet connections. All these types of communications are indicated with a specific date and time at which the communication started. Also indicated is the time duration for that communication. So in the case of, for instance, a voice call, the duration of that communication will be indicated. In the case of GPRS, the time that that connection was intact with the service provider will also be indicated. And then lastly, my lady, and that is where the movement comes in, is that the tower used for that communication, the cell phone must connect to the network, and for the cell phone to connect to the network, it's making use of the cell phone towers that the service providers has got throughout the country. Now, that specific tower where the communication started is also indicated on the detailed billing records.
And And a cell phone would connect with which tower?
My lady, the cell phone will always connect to the strongest available signal. And in most cases, that will be the closest tower to where the device are at that specific time.
Now, if one would use applications like WhatsApp and or Facebook, how would that be indicated on a deturbining?
My lady, all the, let's call it...
Good morning. We interrupt this broadcast to go live now to the Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe at the Mine Health Summit.
Honourable Ministers here present, the organised business, organised labour, our partners, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honoured to welcome you to South Africa on the occasion that is without a doubt a landmark event in our collective effort to address the public health challenge of TB in the mining sector in Southern Africa. It is historic because we have collectively recognized that TB in the mining sector is not just a health issue, but an economic, labor, and development issue, one that requires a collective, coordinated approach, especially given the fact that mining contributes so significantly to development on the continent. This explains the presence of such a broad range of stakeholders here this morning. TB in the mining sector is a particular challenge due to the fact that the prevalence of TB is higher in mining communities than it is in the general population. Given the sobering fact that Africa is one of the continents unlikely to achieve the Millennium Development Goals target of having TB-related mortality by the end of 2015, the urgency of developing and implementing region-wide programs is self-evident. Program Director, Africa is where mining began. The oldest mines in the world are to be found on our continent. Of the 54 countries on the African continent, 46 have mineral resources of commercial importance. Today, Africa mines or quarries 60 mineral products, and mining contributes about 20% of Africa's economic activity. Minerals are Africa's second largest export category and are exceeded only by oil and gas. Even though many believe that much of the continent's mineral wealth remain undiscovered, Africa is among the well-endowed nations in terms of mineral resources. There is no doubt, therefore, that mining is a key component of Africa's development and will continue to be so in the decades to come. However, like most industrial activities, mining has an impact on the environment, on communities in which mining happens, and on the individuals who work in the mines and in mine-related services. Mining also has a large impact on internal and cross-border migration, and so the impact of TB in mine-linked communities is felt much more acutely than it is in the population at large. These challenges need to be addressed so that benefits accrue to all those involved in this sector, as well as communities and countries. Ladies and gentlemen, it is in recognition of these issues that the need for a regional approach inspired the SADC heads of state to sign the declaration on TB in the mining sector in August 2012. This declaration recognizes the particular vulnerability of mine workers to TB and HIV as a result of their occupation and lifestyles. It also highlights many of the specific challenges that need to be urgently addressed in order to overcome this disease. Some of the gaps identified include A, lack of harmonized treatment regimens between mines and across borders. B, an absence of effective cross-border medical referral and patient tracking systems. C, a lack of minimum standards for the control of occupational TB and HIV, silicosis, and other occupational respiratory diseases. D, inadequate or absence of mechanisms for financial compensation of mine workers and ex-mine workers with TB, silicosis, and other occupational diseases. And E, weak coordination and collaboration at national and regional levels, and a weak policy and legislative environment. The declaration recognizes that globalized trade and migration will always intersect, and it emphasizes the need for us to move forward as a collective or in concert. The declaration further draws from the lessons learned in responding to the HIV epidemic, particularly the value of partnerships and the lesson that a coordinated multi-sector, multi-stakeholder approach is likely to yield results in the short, medium, and long term, and that governments cannot tackle these challenges single-handedly. For this reason, the declaration reinforces the regional ministerial mandate for a truly harmonized approach to TB in the mining sector, in which all partners, public, private, multilateral, and bilateral, are aligned around a single coordinated framework for the delivery of services that will have a profound and positive impact on the lives of mine workers and the communities where mining takes place. Program Director, it is important to recognize that the efforts of our colleagues and counterparts who have worked so tirelessly to secure agreement on the SADC declaration on TB in the mining sector. We thank them for their sterling leadership, which has enabled us to make the political and operational decisions that take advantage of a decade of scientific advances which have accelerated the global TB response. Due to the agency required to address the issues, ministers of health from Mozambique, Lesotho, Swaziland, and South Africa have led the charge with the development of a harmonized approach to the treatment of TB in the mining sector. Progress on this will be shared and issues debated in this meeting today. Lessons learned will hopefully assist other countries in the future. We commend the technical experts who have worked on these protocols and the leadership and support provided by the ministers in this regard. Let me also commend the private sector, organized labor, the development community, and many others who have contributed to this work and who remain committed to this effort, as evidenced by their presence in this meeting this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, although the declaration focuses largely on the health aspects of TB in the mining sector, there is a clear recognition of the fact that this is not just a health matter, but it is also an economic, social, and development issue, especially for Southern Africa. This disease, which is the leading cause of death in our country, has a huge impact on workforce productivity and operational costs in an industry that contributes about 20% to South Africa's GDP. TB contracted in and around the mining sector, but treated in public health facilities, places a huge burden on the national health systems of affected countries and undermines public health efforts. Furthermore, the fact that disease rates have been disproportionately high for more than a century has contributed to the build-up of unresolved legacy issues for an industry in which appropriate humane standards of treatment, care, workers' protection and compensation have rarely been comprehensively enforced. While the SADC Declaration on TB in the mining sector provides a scaffold for the agreements that need to be reached, our task today is to put meat on the bones so that we can accelerate regional implementation. Among the components that will be interrogated today will be the evidence for why TB in the mining sector deserves attention, as well as elaboration of the harmonized framework that the four aforementioned countries in the region have crafted. We will also hear about the challenge of adequately compensating mine workers and ex-mine workers who develop occupational disease or injuries. Compensation issues have historically been extremely difficult to resolve due to the complexities inherent in the processes. It is heartening to note that a few weeks ago, a 2-day workshop involving many of the key role players in this particular issue was convened here in Gauteng, and that a number of important recommendations were adopted and commitments made to find ways to ensure that benefits reach those who qualify, including their dependents. I'm hopeful that what will emerge today will be a clear roadmap for tackling not only treatment-related issues, but that the other concerns highlighted in the declaration, namely mechanisms for effective cross-border referral, the development and implementation of a monitoring system to enable us to assess progress, as well as dealing with the protracted challenge of fair compensation of ex-mine workers and mine workers, as alluded to above. Under the leadership of SADC and the African Union, this roadmap will serve as a template for a region-wide and ultimately a continent-wide effort to deal proactively and comprehensively with the challenge of TB in the mining sector. In fact, this template can be applied to other migrant populations in other sectors, such as the farming and agricultural sector, and many others, because the principles that underpin the work are universally accepted. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an example of what is possible when we respond in ways that strengthen our common humanity. Whilst the private sector applies an employer-employee lens to the issues, organized labor focuses on securing an enabling workplace, fair labor practices, and fair remuneration. Governments have a duty to respect, protect, and create an enabling environment for fulfilling the basic rights that workers are entitled to. All role players need to always bear in mind that workers are also members of families, and that they are searching for opportunities to earn a decent living in order to provide for their families like all other workers in various other fields. By keeping this important concept central to our work, our responses take on a different color, one that recognizes our common humanity and enables us to collectively adopt and implement compassionate and yet pragmatic solutions that benefit all. Program Director, by now we have all learned that so much more can be achieved by working together in pursuit of a common purpose. I thank you for your leadership in this initiative and for convening here this morning to take up this challenge. May your deliberations this morning produce outcomes, strategies, and solutions that help us to reduce the devastating impact of TB on population health and economic growth. May they produce the roadmap setting out the steps for how we will eliminate this long-standing challenge once and for all. I wish you well in your deliberations and look forward to hearing about the outcomes of this landmark event. Let me thank you once again for being here and hope that those of you who have come from far-flung places of our continent and abroad will find time to enjoy and experience the warmth of the people of South Africa. And I thank you for your attention.
And that was the Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe at the mining Indaba at the summit there, TB in the mining sector he was talking about. We're going to cross now live back to the Oscar Pistorius trial underway at the North Gauteng High Court.
There were no voice calls made from that phone.
That's correct, my lady. On the 13th, for the 4949, starting at 17:30 in the afternoon until midnight, there was only 5 GPRS or internet connections made by this device.
Now, if one looks at the chart as we have it, let's start with the first line, the connection to the internet. Not that one, sorry. If you go to 0020, we've now done that one.
The communication for the bottom part on the 0020 number. My lady, the first line indicates a GPRS or internet connection that started at 17:30 and 46 seconds. It lasted for 254 seconds, and the tower that was used was the Midrand, the 2G Midrand Gardens SGC tower.
Now, if one analyzes this chart, when you started, the accused was in the Midrand Gardens area, but one can see movement towards his house.
That is correct, my lady. If we have a look at just looking at the towers and the communication as it follows, one can see the first one is at Midrand Gardens. The following one will be at Vodacom, Voda World, then Mustek, George Road, again Mustek, then one would get the Mint, again the Mint, Karen Street, Flying Saucer, and then one can continue to Pretoria Newlands, Menlo Park, Wapatrand, and eventually one gets to Silver Lakes, and then the Silver Lakes MTN NGA Tower, which is the serving cell for where the accused lived.
Now, let us then start. There's a phone call by the accused received the phone call whilst he was at Mustek George Road from 775. Let's deal with that one.
775, that one. Ready just to enlarge it on the screen. One can see that. There we go. The 775 number called the accused 0020 number. At that stage, the accused device made use of the 3G Mustek George Road SGC tower. It was an incoming voice call, and the communication lasted for 307 seconds. And that communication took place on the 13th of February at 17:36 and 51 seconds.
Then later, let us just deal with the phone call from the deceased to the accused. We have dealt with it on her chart, but one can also now see it on this chart.
That's correct, my lady. This is now I would call it the reverse side, whereas on the other side, on the deceased phone, one could have seen where she was during that communication. Now again, one can see that when the accused received the communication from the deceased number at 17:44 and 54 seconds, the accused handset made use of the 2G, the Mint NGA tower for this communication.
Now, you've explained, and one can read it here, what the internet connections would be, and then there's a phone call to the number 5937.
Yes.
Lady, take the court through that one.
There's an outgoing call that the accused 0020 cell phone made on the 13th at 18:07 and 22 seconds to the 5937 number. The call lasted for 522 seconds, and at that stage, the accused device made use of the 3G Walpatrand Cell C NGA tower.
And the accused made another phone call a bit later to the 7775 number.
That is correct, my lady. On the 13th at 18:47 and 59 seconds, the 0020 number for the accused made the call to 7775. At that stage, the accused device made use of the 3G Silver Lakes NTN NGA tower, and the communication lasted for 36 seconds.
And that would be the tower closest to his house?
That is correct, my lady.
Then there's one more phone call to 3964.
That's correct, my lady. On the 13th at 20:25 and 07 seconds, there was an outgoing call from the 0020 number of the accused. At that stage, again, he made use of the 3G Silver Lakes NTN NGA tower, and that call lasted for 1,737 seconds.
And that was the last voice call made on that phone before calls after the incident. Is that correct?
That's correct, my lady. That was the last voice call for the 13th, and then prior to the incident the following morning.
But there were other GPRS connections on that particular phone.
That is correct, my lady. After that, there were, on the 13th, there were 4 internet connections made by the device.
For purposes of the accused communication, you compiled 2 charts.
That's correct, my lady. I've broken it down into communication that took place on the 13th, and then communication that took place on the 14th until, I think, if I remember correctly, about 8 o'clock in the morning. I can just confirm. Yes, at about 8 o'clock on that specific
So
morning.
we'll now move to ZZ5. May the next chart be marked, my lady, and handed in as ZZ5.
Thank you.
The first GPRS connection, what time was it?
Well, lady, sorry, just again, I did the analysis on both numbers. Again, the top line would indicate the 4949 number for the accused, and then the bottom line at the bottom of the analysis, the 0020 number.
Let's deal with the 0020 number.
If one look at the first GPRS or internet connection, it's now on the 14th of February. The time that the connection started was at 01:48 and 48 seconds. Tower stays the same, 3G Silver Lakes NTN NGA, and that connection lasted for 309 seconds.
The next connection?
Already the next connection The connection starts on the 14th at 03:18 and 45 seconds, and tower stays the same, 3G Silver Lakes MTN NGA, and that connection lasted for 75 seconds.
So it started at 3:18 and it lasted for 75 seconds.
That's correct, my lady.
Then we have a phone call.
That's correct, my lady. The first voice communication on the 14th of February at 03:19 and 03 seconds. The 0020 number for the accused made a phone call to the number ending 2251. That number was saved on the accused handset as Johan Silverwoods. My lady, and that outgoing call lasted for 24 seconds.
Then there's another GPRS connection.
That's correct, my lady. At 03:20 and 02 seconds, a GPRS connection is started that lasted for 79 seconds.
Let me get a further phone call.
That's correct, my lady. On the 14th of February at 03:20 and 05 seconds, the accused on the 0020 number made a phone call to the 082911 number, which is an ambulance service. And that call lasted for 66 seconds.
Then let's deal with the next GPRS connection.
Okay. The next GPRS connection starts at 03:21 and 22 seconds, and it lasted for 61 seconds.
Then we have another phone call.
I just want to get everything on the screen. The next phone call, my lady, was on the 14th at 03:21 and 33 seconds. It was an outgoing voice call that the accused 0020 number made to a number that's ending 6797. And that number was identified, my lady, as the security of the estate.
And the next call?
Lady, the next voice call was at 03:21 and 47 seconds. The call lasted for 7 seconds, and the outgoing call was made to 121. Now, 121, my lady, is the voice mailbox number that one would dial to listen to your voicemails.
Okay, and then there's an incoming call.
That's correct, my lady. Directly after that, there's an incoming voice call at 03:22 and 05 seconds, and that was when the 6797 security number phoned the accused, Mr. Pistorius.
Then we have GPRS connections, and the accused made a further call.
That's correct, my lady. There was another call. The call was made on the 14th at 03:55 and 02 seconds. It was an outgoing call to a number ending 8888. That number was saved on the accused handset as Justin Tavares, and that call lasted for 123 seconds.
Then we have a further GPRS connection for 83 seconds.
That's correct.
And a further phone call.
That's correct, my lady. At 04:01 and 38 seconds, there was an outgoing call to the 7775 number from the accused 0020 number, and it lasted for 34 seconds.
And that was saved as?
That was saved as Deco, and the number was identified as belonging to Heinrich Pistorius.
Then we have 2 further GPRS connections, and there were then 3 calls made to the same number.
That's correct, my lady. There was 3 outgoing calls made to one number ending 6940. That number was saved on the accused's handset as Piet. The first call started at 0409 and 03 seconds. It lasted for 11 seconds. The second one was at 0409 and 42 seconds. It lasted for 13 seconds. And then the third one was at 0410 21 and it lasted for 3 seconds.
And then that same number phoned the accused.
That's correct, my lady. There was then an incoming voice call from that number, returning the calls at 0411 and 25 seconds. The communication started and it lasted for 49 seconds.
Then, Captain, we have GPRS connections with the internet, and one could establish that that phone then left that area.
That is correct, my lady, that the phone was in that area, reception area of the Silver Lakes MTN NGA tower until about 8 o'clock that morning, and thereafter it left.
And that's the particular phone that was handed back to the police on 25th of February?
That's correct, my lady.
And just for completeness sake, as far as 4949 is concerned?
My lady, the 4949 number, there was only incoming text messages on the 14th, the morning of the 14th, and then there was one incoming voice call that was relayed to the voice mailbox center. My lady, it's indicated that the tower was no cell ID in ticket, which basically means to us that that cell phone was at that during that communication it was switched off. So it was text messages that was received on the server, and it was lying there until such a time that the device was switched on and the messages could be delivered to the owner or the user of that specific number.
Now, Captain, from the last call made by the identified Piet to the accused, there were no other outgoing or incoming voice calls to this particular phone.
My lady, that was the last, let's call it successful voice communication. There was incoming voice calls, but all of that calls were diverted to the voice mailbox server of the user. So there was no successful or calls that was answered by any person.
Or made by any person.
Or made by any person, that's correct, my lady.
Then, Captain, if we could just then deal with the data, the next bundle that we have, that would be ZZ6. What would that be, Captain?
My lady, the data is just the relevant data that was utilized during the analysis, and the first set would contain all the communication for the deceased number, the 3535 number. Oh, sorry, not 35, sorry, 5353 number. Sorry, my lady.
Well, as far as, and Captain, how we can see this is that, where would that number be?
My lady, the number that the information was given to us would appear on the left-hand column printed on the page. One can see the header of that column reads MSISDN, which is the cell phone number, and that number stays constant. That is our target number, or the number that the information was supplied to us on.
I'm not sure I have the right page.
Yeah, I think there might be. My lady, may I ask that the next document that you have in your file, that you just take that out, my lady? And
how do I identify it?
My lady, it reads Law Enforcement Agency Support Services Statements, Vodacom.
Yes.
Those are the 205 statements, my lady. May that be removed from the bundle that I handed up. There's been an admission made, and that would not be necessary to hand in.
Is that the only page or just the bundle?
The whole bundle, my lady, it deals with law enforcement agencies, and the last page is explanation of all data terms.
Yes.
May that be removed from the file that you have in front of you. Then, my lady, the next document would indicate in the left-hand line a number ending on 5353.
Yes, I've got that. That's the exhibit ZZ6.
Indeed, my lady, and may that be handed in, my lady, as ZZ6. Captain, we will not refer to the detail in this document, but you confirm that that's the data that you received, that you used to enable you to draft the chart that you handed in.
That's correct, my lady.
The next set of numbers, Captain, would be?
My lady, the next set of data would relate to the cell phone number of the accused ending 4949.
And that would also, as with the previous number, be indicated in the left-hand column, 4949.
That's correct, my lady. And again, it's the data that I relied on by doing my analysis.
My lady, may that be handed in as ZZ7. Then, Captain, we have the data of the cell phone number 0020.
That's correct, my lady. Again, it's an extraction of the data that I utilized for the analysis, and the target number, or the number that the data was supplied on, appears on the far left-hand column.
And, my lady, may that be marked as ZZ8. And then, my lady, there's a set of documents in the bundle that I handed up. May I ask that that also just be taken out of the bundle that was handed up? I won't be handing in that exhibit. It deals with the number 7775, my lady, but it won't be. I have no intention of handing that in.
You want this removed as well?
May I ask that that be removed? Thank you. I will collect them. Captain, let us just deal with your duties as policeman and where you found yourself now. You've been involved in data and cell phone analysis since when?
Well, lady, I did my first training on the use of I2 Analyst Notebook in 2002 already.
And since then, is that what you've been doing on a daily basis?
That's correct, my lady. Since 2002 until 2006, it was my secondary function. My primary function was investigating officer. And then since 2006, my functions changed, and my primary function became the analysis of data, not only cell phone, but all related data. And then later on, also the investigation of devices, cell phones more specifically.
And Captain, you've given evidence in magistrates' court, regional courts and high courts throughout South Africa.
That's correct, my lady, and quite often as well.
You've also received training from various institutions locally and abroad.
That's correct, my lady.
You've received in-service training from the local service provider in understanding their systems and their records?
That's correct, my lady, because we're dealing with now 4 mobile service providers and 1 fixed line. Each of them provides us the information or the data in different formats. So for that reason, I had to undergo training and spend some time with them in understanding what the detailed billing entails and the information that they supply to us.
In your statement and a report you drafted, in paragraph 3, you set out the training that you received up until today.
That's correct, my lady.
And that was made available to the defence?
That's correct, my lady.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Roux?
Lady, may I just ask for 10 minutes to get the exhibits in proper order, and I believe it would save a lot of time. Yes.
We'll take our agenda.
On your right.
How do you think he actually works?
Get fully installed fixed-line broadband with modem and turn your home into a Wi-Fi hotspot. That's 5 gigs data plus 5 gigs promo data for just $3.99, including ADSL and line rental. Plus, you'll also get a free 3G dongle with 200 megabytes mobile data a month and loads more benefits for your new connected home. Rethink fixed broadband. Call, click, go to a Telkom store.
Take a pinch of alpha, that's for fun. After that's so fiddly, titty-dum. Yeah, sprinkle in a magic peanut butter. Zippity-dee. Jump out. After that's jump out, 'cause I'm a cedar. Life is a hullabaloo. When you sappity-doo. In a world of imagination.
Remember when the world was full of wonder and you felt excited about banking? It's time to feel like that again. The new Standard Bank app is going to change banking as we know it and put the joy back into managing your finances. When last did you feel this excited about banking?
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere. As the biggest, the most extensive, diverse news organization and the best content provider of choice in Africa, we aim to offer the nation breaking news, continuous content update, and current affairs programming throughout the day. We are extremely devoted to putting the news in context and providing the nation with the news they want in their own language. We reflect the world to the nation and the nation to itself. This is SABC News. All local, all global, all the time. Exclusive to DSTV.
It's 10:25 Central African time on this Tuesday, the 25th of March 2014. Dumelang, Macharoni, Namaste, Assalamu Alaikum, Nda, Jumbo Africa. and a very warm welcome to AM News right here on SABC News Channel 404. We are broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios here in Johannesburg, South Africa. You better stay with us. We'll bring you some of the latest news from here and abroad, as well as live visuals from the Oscar Pistorius trial. My name is Elvis Preston, and with me is our sports presenter, Kendall Makamate. Good morning to you, Squire.
Good morning, Sire. Thank you.
What's coming up in sports?
Coming up in sports, we're touching on the T20 yesterday when South Africa did extremely well against New Zealand. Germany and Spain are doing extremely well for the Proteas. And tonight, in the only Premiership match, we've got Mamelodi Sundowns in Rustenburg against Platinum Stars.
Well, that's a Germany and a stain remover. What more can you ask for? Let's Kendall with your sports news a little bit later. But right now, let's take a look at your headlines. More supporters of deposed Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi hauled before court in the capital Cairo today. Western industrialized economic powers cancel the upcoming G8 summit in Russia in response to the crisis in Ukraine. And a narrow escape for the Proteas as they beat New Zealand by 2 runs to keep their hopes of advancing to the next round of the World T20 tournament in Bangladesh. That's some of your headlines. Our top story in this hour. Tension is brewing on the streets of the Egyptian capital, Cairo. This, as a second group of over 700 people will go on trial in Egypt today. A court in Cairo sentenced 529 supporters of the ousted Islamic President Mohamed Morsi to death yesterday after a 2-day trial. It's the biggest mass death sentence handed out in Egypt's modern history. The outlawed Muslim Brotherhood members face multiple charges, including murder.
The death sentence of 529 defendants came after a trial that cast Egypt's military-backed government in even worse light amid its ruthless crackdown on dissent. Yesterday's ruling by a judge in Upper Egypt brought condemnation from rights groups and foreign observers. The verdict can be appealed at the Court of Cassation, which will likely order a new trial or reduce the sentences. But not all Egyptians are happy with the ruling.
We believe the trial's fairness, which is a right enshrined in the criminal code, was absent in this case, and therefore we take this stand not in favor of any party. We are all aware and in agreement about the crimes committed by the Muslim Brotherhood. However, we must defend the rule of law in Egypt and ensure justice for all.
This is good because it is the first time we see our judges act so quickly.
So why hasn't Mubarak been given the death penalty? So why haven't any of the ministers in jail been given the death penalty so far? Is their lawyer just really good and the lawyer for the Muslim Brotherhood lousy? Or are the judges just different, each working according to different laws? This is a farce.
Turmoil has deepened since the army overthrew Egypt's first freely elected president, Mohamed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood, in July. Security forces have killed hundreds of Brotherhood members in the streets and arrested thousands.
The number of victims from the Uganda Lake Albert boat accident has risen to 107 people. The victims died after a reportedly overloaded vessel capsized in a lake along the border of Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. It is believed that most of those on board were mostly Congolese refugees.
The Western Rift region of Uganda is home to thousands of Congolese refugees who have fled strife at home over the years, particularly in Democratic Republic of Congo's eastern region, which has been plagued by violence involving various rebel groups. Rescue officials said they need to better communicate with the refugees to advise them when it's safe to return to their country and the best routes to use.
Information is reliable information which we got from refugees who said that there were about 250 in the boat. Now, if you do your math, you find that we have recovered close to 130 refugees, both who survived, 41 and 98 who we found the bodies. So there's a likelihood that there are more bodies which have not been recovered.
Police said that they estimate about 150 people were on the boat and that they expect no more survivors. Lake Albert is about 160 kilometers long and 30 kilometers wide and is the north foremost of a chain of lakes in the Albertine Rift, the western branch of the Rift Valley. The boat began its journey at the northern end of the lake and was heading south to a landing site on the Ugandan shoreline when it ran into trouble at around mid-morning. Popular with local traders and fishermen, boats often overloaded crisscrossed the lake, linking the towns and villages that dot the shoreline. Accidents are relatively common on Uganda's lakes, which include Lake Victoria and Lake Edward, due to overloading, lack of maintenance, and lax enforcement of safety standards.
The United Nations has warned that Guinea's Ebola outbreak is threatening to spread to neighboring countries, Sierra Leone and Liberia. The viral disease has killed at least 59 people thus far. Doctors Without Borders say there are reports of patients with symptoms in both Sierra Leone and Liberia, but there are no laboratory-confirmed cases.
The National Institute of Communicable Diseases of South Africa has issued an alert to port health authorities to be on the lookout for travelers arriving from Guinea with suspected Ebola. While Guinea and its neighbors are not tourist destinations for South Africa, there are ties with local oil and mining companies, which means that workers regularly travel between the two countries. Guinea's health ministry said most of the 80 known cases of the diseases were in border areas near Sierra Leone and Liberia. Experts say early reports of 3 cases in Conakry, Guinea's capital, were unfounded. Most Ebola outbreaks have been in Central African countries. The first in 1976 in Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, killed 280 people. The most recent in 2012 in Uganda is thought to have killed fewer than 50. The outbreak in Guinea is of the Zaire strain, which has a 90% mortality rate. The countries threatened by the outbreak are amongst the world's poorest and cannot mount large public health efforts of their own.
Still in Africa, thousands of civilians are in dire need of immediate protection and assistance in the Central African Republic. It is 1 year after a coup by the Seleka rebel coalition. Human rights watchdogs say that international efforts to address the crisis remain sadly inadequate.
Signs of peace as gunfire rings through the streets of the capital city in Central African Republic. At least 9 people are killed as the country marks the launch of a coup a year ago.
I asked the people who are trying to destroy their own country, be it the Seleka or the Ntibalaka, to stop their atrocities. They are still here in the country killing people, committing massacres and stealing. They should stop.
France has deployed 2,000 troops to its former colony to support a 6,000-strong African Union peacekeeping mission. But they've been unable to stamp out the violence in the large, sparsely populated nation of 4.5 million people.
Now that's all the news we have for you at this hour. We're going to cross now live back to the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, where the Oscar Pistorius trial is in session.
Communications of the deceased. On the right-hand side, you will see some GPRS communications.
That's correct.
As an expert, how would you explain that? Because we know it is past the unfortunate event early in the morning. And how would you explain that, the activity?
My lady, the question relates to the GPRS connections on the 14th. I just want to take it one back to the last communication that started on the 13th, and that communication started at 20 hours 04, and one can see it lasted for 41,029 seconds. Now, I didn't do the maths, but one can do it.
It's 11.3 hours.
Thank you. Now, it's not really possible for an individual, especially at night time, to be physically on the phone for that 11 hours. So the explanation that we can give for that is that one of the applications on the device whether it be Facebook, whether it be News 24 sites, whether it be Instagram, whether it be any social media site, one of that applications was still open and connected to the network. And that would explain that constant GPRS connection, because the user or the owner of that specific device didn't end that connection.
I think it's correct. If an application is not closed, it will carry on running. It will continue.
That's correct, my lady.
But that's not the only reason why there would be activity. Of course, the other reasons would be with GPRS. That would be emails coming in. It would be applications, automatic cell phone updates.
That's correct, my lady. GPRS, as it's indicated on the detailed billing records, it just indicates to us that there was communication. But the type of communication is not specified. So it can be anything from internet connections, as was said, internet connections, automatic updates, updates on the email accounts. It can be any one of that.
Emails coming in.
Emails coming in, emails going out.
Or a website that was left open.
That's correct, my lady.
Browsing history. So it does not mean that it is human interaction at that moment.
That's correct. From this detailed billing records, one can't specify the human intervention there.
The same would apply to ZZ5, which is the chart on Mr. Pistorius' communications on the day, the morning of the 14th.
That's correct, my lady. All that internet or GPRS connections can be any one of a lot of things.
I've seen, for instance, we don't have to check it because I think that's what your answer is, that at the time when it was on a cell phone to 911, there was internet interaction. It shows it can be anything, updates, browsing.
There's a lot of possibilities. That's correct, my lady.
Now, if I may take you to exhibit QQ, I'm going to show it to you because you should know it. It's handed up. That was the security call logs, or the history, call history. On the landline. It was the cell phone. Do you have that? If I show you the document, it's QQ.
Just having a look.
I think it's a telecom. Can you just identify it for me? It's at the telecom line.
That's correct, my lady. As I understand,
Just hold on. You're much
my
too
lady,
fast.
may I just show? I apologize. May I just show it to the court that it was handed up as an exhibit, but it will help because there.
Because my QQ is different, and I hear from my assessors their QQ is different as well.
I'm told it's Q1, my lady. I'm sorry.
QQ1.
Q1.
Q1. Okay, we'll probably find it.
Only Q1, my lady. Yeah, it's only a single Q, my lady. Q1.
I've got a copy in front of me, yes?
If I may just have my copy back. Now, this is the, it reflects Q1, the incoming calls to the security landline at the Silverwoods estate.
That's correct, my lady. As I understand, this is they've got their own computer system where all the incoming and outgoing communication to that landline has been captured by them.
As an expert, I just need you to explain some of the things. On the first page, the last entry, it is extension 4283.
That's correct.
According to the witness Baba, that was Mr. Stipp's call, Dr. Stipp's call. And what was the duration of that call to security?
My lady, if I understand this document correct, the call took place at 03:15 and 51 seconds, and it lasted for 16 seconds.
If you go to the second page, yes. We know, according to Mr. Baba's evidence, that the first two were calls by Mr. Nsingetwa.
That's correct. The first one not being answered according to this, and then the second one.
What time was it, the first one?
The first one at 03:16 and 13 seconds, and the second one at 03:16 and 36 seconds. It was answered and it lasted for 44 seconds.
And then the fourth from the top, that was again a call by Dr. Stipp. The first one was 16 seconds. What was this one?
My lady, if I understand this documentation correct, it was not answered. The duration was 0 seconds at 03:27.
If I may ask you to go to is it ZZ5, the chart. I'm looking for the chart, Captain, if you can assist at dealing with the calls of Mr. Pistorius early morning of the 14th of February.
Well, I've got it on the screen. Unfortunately, I'm not certain what reference number was given. That's the third one that was handed in.
It's ZZ5.
ZZ5. It seems so, yes.
According to your chart analysis, when did Mr. Pistorius make a call to security?
According to my analysis, the call that he made to the security was at 03:21 and 33 seconds.
You have also checked that with reference to his outgoing calls on his data.
That's correct, my lady. This was the analysis that I did on his cell phone number. But I also confirmed the direction, if I can call it, the status of the call on the other side, whereas on the detailed billing for the 6797 number of the security.
Yes, and when did the security call back?
Lady, the call that the accused received from the security took place on the 14th at 03:22 and 05 seconds.
So, according to your analysis, who made the first call? Security to Mr. Pistorius or Mr. Pistorius to security?
The first call was made by Mr. Pistorius.
And that was answered?
That was answered. It lasted for 9 seconds.
Yes. And then there was a return call from?
That's correct. There was a return call from the security that Mr. Pistorius received, and that lasted for 12 seconds.
You spoke about a very short call to one-to-one.
That's correct.
I assume you have an iPhone?
No.
No. Well, Will you accept when I put it to you, when you press the buttons at the bottom, one thing that's always in the way is the voicemail?
That's, I've reckoned or heard so from colleagues of mine. Yeah. That's correct, my lady. The voice call button and the other buttons are very close. So my personal opinion about this call was that it wasn't an intentional call. Yeah. That was during the time that Mr. Pistorius was on the phone, he accidentally pushed that button.
I think that's a fair assumption. Yeah. Now, if I go to the call data of Mr. Pistorius, that is ZZ8. If I may just show it to you, my lady, and why I'm doing it, I just want to make sure that we follow the correct exhibits. And if you just show the court as well, please. Do you also have yours marked as ZZ8?
Yes, I've got it in front of me.
It went quite quickly and it was difficult always to mark it. That's why I'm just making sure about this. If you go to the first page, to go to the morning of the 14th.
Sorry, my lady, that's page 937 of 1343 at the bottom left-hand corner. The page number is indicated.
That's right, page 937 of 1343.
That's correct, my lady.
I'm going to put to you what it is, and if you disagree, of course, you're welcome to do that. That is a call made by Mr. Pistorius to Johan Stander at 3:19.
That's correct, my lady.
Yeah.
It's an outgoing call.
You would have checked the numbers.
That's correct.
Yeah. Then on the next page, that would be page 938 of 1343. That is a call by Mr. Pistorius at 03:20:05 to 911, and the duration was 66 seconds.
That's correct, my lady.
The next call is the one that we've dealt with, the second entry. That is a call at 3:21:33 for 9 seconds to security.
That's correct, my lady.
And then it was what we could call the accidental 1-to-1.
1-to-1, yes.
The 7 seconds. And the fifth entry on 14 February at 03:22:05 was an incoming call from security, the return call from security.
That's correct, my lady.
Which was 12 seconds.
That's correct.
You referred to calls to Piet van Zyl.
That's correct, my lady, the 6940 number.
I know it's not for you to investigate. Do you know who made those calls? Apart from the fact that it was from Mr. Pistorius' cell phone.
No, my lady. That's the problem with the analysis and the communication. I can only indicate the communication that took place between two numbers. I can't indicate that a specific person was involved in that communication.
Then, Captain, if I may then deal with the messages between Mr. Pistorius and Riva Steenkamp, the deceased.
That's correct.
You have extracted about 5 of these messages. I think they were all WhatsApp, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, my lady.
And I think, if I understood your evidence correctly, out of 1,704 WhatsApp between them.
Yes.
A great number.
That's correct. It was more than 1,700.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
And I assume that you said that you wanted to determine relevant communications. What was your approach in determining relevance?
My lady, if I can answer it in this way, if one reads through this conversations and 1,700 and something entries that there was, one can immediately identify certain messages that stood out. And by standing out, I would mean that it's not the ordinary or normal conversations. It's something else that's happening here.
I can ask you many questions. Let's get straight to the point. You found 4 relevant to arguing between them.
That's correct.
That's what you were looking at.
That's correct.
It's not that they're standing out. You were looking at messages showing some argument between the two.
That's correct.
Yes. And out of that, more than 1,700 you found 4.
That's correct. Conversations, not...
Yeah.
Because some of them were more than only one message. But
Yes.
yes, conversations.
Yes. Now, where's this one? I'm trying to find your document that you made use of. The ZZ1, if you might have that in front of you.
That's correct.
My lady, for the court's assistance, that is the document handed to you with the arguing emails, the 4 that the witness referred to yesterday.
Yes, the first page of ZZ1.
The first page, ZZ1.
Is there's FSM 03 on the right hand side.
Yes, that's indeed. So FSM 03, I think, my lady.
Yes,
yes,
that's the front page.
If you page onto the 4th page, my lady, it would start with messages.
Yes. Yes, I've got it.
The first, and I hope you're at the same place, Captain.
Maybe
it
just
is
to make it easier on the right-hand side at the bottom, there's page number.
I will, of course, do so. It says page 53 of 343.
That's correct.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Could you find a message where it was said that Mr. Pistorius asked Mr. Fresco to take the blame because of the Tasha's incident?
My lady, no. The messages as I read them yesterday was the only messages that I could find relating to that incident.
Well, let's look at it, what it says. It says, Angel, please don't say a thing to anyone. Darren told everyone it was his fault. You sat in court. I think that's consistent with the evidence of Mr. Fresco. He told everyone it was his fault.
That's correct.
I can't afford for that to come out. The guys promised not to say a thing. That was put to the witness that Mr. Pistorius was concerned that shot that went off would be in the media.
That's correct.
But one thing that's not there is that him saying to Riva that he asked Mr. Fresco to take the blame.
That's correct.
There. The second message that you relied upon, I'll take you to the page. It is at the bottom, it says page 152 of 343.
That's correct, my lady.
You would understand that I don't want to deal with this message because it's really a reflection on the deceased.
That's correct.
Yeah. It's not something about Mr. Pistorius.
That's right.
Yeah.
What page is that?
My lady, that is at the bottom, page 152. You will see in the right-hand corner, my lady, there's a printed page. The second numbering is the printed 10 April, and then it says page 152 of 343.
I've got that.
Thank you, my lady. My lady, I think for obvious reasons I'm not repeating the contents of that message. There will be evidence about that. He dealt with it. It's not that we ignore it, but I think you understand for obvious reasons why I leave that aside.
That's correct, my lady.
It's really dealing with Riva, not the accused.
That's correct.
Yeah. Then page... The next one that you dealt with, if I'm not mistaken, Was it on page 153 of 343?
153 is the one that we just dealt with. 152, 153 form part of each other.
Yeah. That's that one. It's like I see rabbit things in your house. You see that at page 153?
That's correct, my lady.
That will be explained. It's about some object in the house. And it's nothing serious, but just to ask you to go to the next page, it's page 154.
Yes.
To see if that was now a fight. What do you read if you go to page 154, the second entry?
I'm watching the same ceremony now. You're talking about that one?
Yes, that is Riva to Mr. Pistorius.
That's correct. That's an outgoing message from the deceased to the accused.
And that was the African Cup of Nations or the Confederation Cup where he had the flame and he handed that to President Zuma. That's what she was really watching.